The moment the last $4 slid from her trembling fingers onto the cafe counter, Mara Ellison felt the quiet humiliation of being invisible settle into her bones, the kind that comes when daylight is bright and unforgiving and the world keeps moving as if it hasn't noticed how close you are to breaking. She had counted the coins twice before walking in, convinced herself that a cup of cheap coffee was a reasonable reward for surviving another week of unanswered emails, past due notices, and mornings that began with hope and ended with silence. She had no idea that this ordinary, almost desperate choice would place her on the edge of a meeting that would quietly reroute her entire life. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unexpected ways life brings light into dark seasons, please take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel Heartwarming Tales. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. The cafe was filled with late morning sunlight, the kind that made dust particles shimmer like secrets, and Mara chose a small table near the window because it made her feel less alone. She wore a faded blue dress that had once been her favorite interview outfit, now softened by too many washes and disappointments. Her phone buzzed with a reminder about the blind date she had nearly cancelled, a setup from a coworker she barely knew back when she still had a job. Mara hadn't wanted romance, she wanted reassurance that she still existed beyond rejection letters and silent apartments. Sitting there with her coffee warming her hands, she rehearsed calm breathing, telling herself that even if the date went nowhere, at least she had tried to step outside the shrinking circle of her life. Her thoughts drifted to the morning she had lost her job at the publishing firm, how the manager's voice had been polite and hollow, how she had packed her desk under fluorescent lights while everyone pretended not to stare. Since then, days had blurred into one another, filled with applications, careful budgeting, and the constant fear of becoming someone her younger self would pity. The $4 she spent today were meant for groceries, but loneliness had felt heavier than hunger, and she had chosen connection over caution for once. Outside, people passed by laughing, carrying bags, living lives that seemed impossibly intact. When Jonah Reed walked in, he did not look like the kind of man who changed lives. He was tall but slightly stooped, as if used to carrying more than his share, and his clothes were practical rather than impressive. What caught Mara's attention was the gentleness in his face, the tired kindness around his eyes that suggested responsibility rather than charm. He scanned the room carefully, not nervously, but with the alertness of someone accustomed to watching out for others. When his gaze met Mara's, something settled between them, not sparks or fireworks, but a quiet recognition that neither of them was here to play games. They sat together as sunlight stretched across the table, and time began to move differently. Mara noticed how Jonah listened fully, not rushing to impress, how he spoke about his work at a local hardware store with steady pride rather than apology. She sensed there were pieces of his life he held back, not out of secrecy but protection, and that made her trust him more. She found herself opening up about her job loss, her shrinking savings, the embarrassment of asking friends how much rent really cost these days. Jonah didn't flinch or offer empty encouragement, he simply absorbed her story as if it mattered, as if she mattered. It was only when the conversation drifted toward weekends and routines that Jonah mentioned his son, a 7-year-old named Elias who loved dinosaurs and struggled with sleep since his mother passed away 2 years earlier. The words landed gently but carried weight, reshaping the space between them. Mara felt a flicker of fear, the instinctive worry of stepping into someone else's unfinished grief, someone else's responsibility. Yet beneath that fear was admiration for the steadiness Jonah carried, the way he spoke of fatherhood not as a burden but as a promise he intended to keep no matter the cost. As the afternoon light brightened and the cafe grew louder, Mara realized she had not once thought about her bank balance or the clock. She felt seen in a way that didn't demand perfection, and for the first time in months, her chest loosened. Jonah, too, seemed lighter, as if the simple act of being understood had given him permission to exhale. When they finally stood to leave, there was no dramatic declaration, just an agreement to walk together for a while, to let the day continue unfolding naturally. Outside, the city buzzed with lunchtime energy, and Mara felt strangely hopeful, even knowing her practical problems were still waiting at home. Over the following week,